Anybody else has a testimony? I'm going to turn these boys loose. And who's going first?
You will start with the book of Philippians, chapter number 3. My title tonight is going to be Press On. Philippians chapter number 3 and verses 13 through 14 says, "Brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth into the things which are before. I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of Christ Jesus, of God in Christ Jesus." Before we can reach, before we can get to the point that we're pressing on to, we have to let go of whatever's behind us. Right here it says, "But this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind." And we have to let go of what we've done in the past, our past sins, in order to receive our blessings. See, if I were to stand here and all I've done for the past 5 years is hold the back of my shirt. If I stand here and I hold the back of my shirt, but I know I need to reach that mic. If I know I need to reach that microphone, and all I do is stand here and all I've done, and I say, well, I'm not going to let go of this shirt because that's what I've always done. This is something that I'm just used to. But if we have that sin in our life, then we need to let go and reach forth unto what God has for us. Right. And in order for us to get our blessings, we have to let go of what we've had in our past. And what we've had before now. We've done, I know all of us here have done things that we're not proud of. Things that we may be ashamed of. But we have to let go of those things in order to reach what God has for us. In order to reach the potential that God has for us. In Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 1 says, "Wherefore seeing we also are compassed, so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us. And let us run the race with patience that is set before us." It says to let us lay aside every weight and the sin that does so easily beset us. If we're going to run this race in our life, if we're going to be able to do what God would have us to do, we've got to let go of the sin. We've got to shed this sin and the chains that are on us. We have to let go of those things and tell the devil we're not going to deal with these anymore. And if we repent to God, He will take those sins away.
True.
And repentance is not something that you go and you say, "God, I'm sorry," and you go back and do it again next week. If you are repenting, you are truly sorry, and you're saying to God that I will not do it again. And you may fall back into that temptation, but it's not something that you're going to desire to do. If you have a desire to sin, you need to check your salvation. And I know sometimes we get into temptations and they take us down, but we've got to be willing to step past those things and say, "I'm done with it. I'm not taking it anymore. I'm giving it to God." And the devil will not be able to take you down to that if it's in God's hands. But God's not going to remember those sins. He says, "So far as He cast those sins away from us, as far as the east is from the west." I know that's not an exact quotation, but it says that He would cast our sins away from us as far as the east is from the west. And if we just forget about what the things in the past are, I'm not saying forget the lessons that the sins taught us, because if we forget the lessons that the sins taught us, then we're more than likely going to do them again. Mm-hmm. But we can't keep holding on to what we did in our past. We have to forgive ourselves, because once God forgives us, I know a lot of times we fail at forgiving ourselves. I know I do especially. I don't know about any of you in here, but when I ask God for forgiveness, I don't forgive myself for what I've done. Mm-hmm. But we have to forgive ourselves in order to move forward, in order to go on to what God has for us. But once we've gotten rid of our sins, we have to move forward. If I were to sit here and I let go of the back of my shirt and I say I'm ready to grab the mic, but I stand here like this, that does no good for me to let go of the back of my shirt. It did nothing good for me to let go of that if I'm just going to stand here with it. In our Christian lives, we can't be complacent. We have to be willing to say, "All right, I'm going to reach forward. I'm going to press on and do what God would have me to do." Because a lot of times we'll get complacent in our Christian lives. And our dad said before he went to Honduras, he was complacent with his life. He was complacent as a Christian, and he was okay with it. He said he was fine with his life, but God had other plans. Mm-hmm. He said there was nothing wrong with the life he was living, but God had other plans. He had a better something out there for God. And I know my dad's thankful that he gave him and went to Honduras, because that is a blessing that all of our family has had. Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful that no matter what, God's always got bigger plans for us. Right. We may think that we've reached the end of the line. We may think, this is it for me. This is how I'm going to live out the rest of my life in this exact same spot. And if it was up to us, a lot of times we probably would. we would probably sit just like we are and live exactly the way we are, but there's always more. We were made for more than what we're in right now. Because God made us to be great. And it's up to us whether or not we will take the leap of faith and press on to what God would have us to do. Because we have to press on. We have to continue to fight during the process. And you have to reach forth. And the process is a lot more than just saying, I'm going to stay in this line, I'm going to stay here and stay exactly where God put me. Because God has got something farther ahead. He's got something farther down the line that will be better for you. It'll be better than what you even think. Right now in your life, you may think it doesn't get any better. I'm living life, I've got a family, I've got a good church family, I've got a good church. But you never know what God has forward. Because if we're not going forward, we're not keeping up with the pace. If we're standing exactly where we are, then everything around us is going forward. Say if you're on the highway and you pull out and you stop right in the middle of the highway, then you're not going to have people just sit behind you. They're not going to sit and wait on you. But you never know if you would have kept pressing. And I know I'm not saying that you should feel down on yourselves for failing. But a lot of times if we keep pressing, if we just keep on pressing, then you never know what you will do for others. You may not even realize what you have done for people. Like there's a lot of times that you'll be a witness and you may think, well, that didn't do no good. They didn't listen to a word I said. But later on down the line, we may not even realize it in this life. But God will tell us, once we get to heaven, He will tell us what effect we had, whether good or bad. We will be judged for both. We will be judged for the good and the bad that we've done. And it's up to us of whether or not we want to have a bigger... I'm not saying like we're going to have different amounts of heaven. I'm not going to say, all right, for 10 hours a day you're going to be able to be in heaven. God's not like that. We're all going to be in heaven. But what you give back to God for what He has done for you. Because God has given me more than I could ever ask for. But what we give back to God, we have to continually try to give back to God. We'll never be able to repay Him for what He did. He died for our sins. We will never be able to repay Him for that. But God will be there at the end. And depending on what we have done in this life, in this walk of life, that is what we will be able to repay for Him. But the things that, if we keep pressing, if we keep fighting for God, then that'll be what we'll be able to repay to God. And we'll never be able to repay fully for what He's done. But it's up to us to say, all right, God, I'm going to press. I'm going to go and I'm going to reach forth and take what you got from me. Because God has got the blessings if we'll just reach out and take it. We should have a desire to do better in our lives. We should stay away from complacency. We should want to get closer to God. Right. It should be something that we desire to do. Because if we don't desire to be closer to God, it's most likely you're complacent. Because if I don't study my Bible enough, I don't pray enough. Those are all things that I can improve on. But it's up to me to do so. Right. God's not going to make me sit down in a chair and read my Bible. He's not going to open my Bible for me. It's up to me to go to my Bible and sit down and have time with God. And it's up to us to say, God, I want more of you. Right. And I understand all 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're not going to be able to sit down and pray and study. In this life, we've got to be able to do other things. But it's up to us to say, when God would allow us to, when we have the time, and I'm not saying that you should put it, if God should be your number one priority, but there are other things that you have to do. I understand that. But when we get time away, a lot of times what do? We go out, we go to movies and things like that. But God would probably rather us go spend time in His Word. And when we have a possibility to be a witness all day long. Yeah, every time, I know we pass lost people near about every day. But it's up to us to be willing. And we may not, I'm not telling you to go up to every person you see and say, are you saved? Are you saved? Every person. But when God opens the door, we have to go through it. Amen. He's not going to shove you through it and say, all right, here you go. I'm going to shove you out in the middle of this. Because God's not going to do anything that He's not going to make us do anything. And the more that we try to resist, when God tells you to do something, if you tell Him no, it's going to be worse on you. Sure. He will log you down and He will do it until you do it. And you may not get much of a blessing out of it if you tell Him no. You tell Him no, and you tell Him no. You never know what God had plans for you to do. And a lot of times we aren't comfortable with the things that He has us to do. But if we'll go out and we'll step outside of our box, we'll step outside of our comfort zone, then you never know what God would have in store for us. Mm-hmm. And you might say, well, what's the point in even pressing on? What is there to even go for? Right here in verse number 14, it says, I press toward the mark, the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. If we press, and if we continue to fight for this life, if we continue to do what God would have us to do, there's a prize. And that prize is heaven.
Sure.
And out of anything that we could ever receive, that's what we're pressing toward in this life. We are pressing to receive heaven. And if we live our lives, it doesn't matter which way you believe. If you live the life that God would have you to live, then you'll reach heaven. And there's a lot of different denominations, and I'm not bogged down in any of them. But if you live your life like you're supposed to, and like the Bible tells you to, then you're going to reach heaven. If you have been saved and washed in the blood of Jesus Christ, then that's what counts. That's what I've got.
First thing I'm going to say, I promise you, we did not look off of each other's notes, but he got the exact same thing that I was studying just yesterday. I got this message yesterday, and I got the title to it when we came out of the car Thursday, I think, and it was right after practice, and we were talking about the plants that were in this garden, and it was unplanted because before, when it was planted, it wasn't growing at all. But then when they unplanted it, it's the weirdest thing, it just started growing, and I didn't understand it at all. And then, God told me something through that. He said, a lot of times we should be that way. We should be willing to unplant ourselves from the way that we are. And if I preach this, I probably will say the same thing that he does. Just bear with me because God's telling me to preach it, so I'm going to preach it. And that's my job, so you're going to have to get through it. I'm sorry. But if you will, turn with me to Colossians chapter 1. And verse 9. Colossians 1 verse 9 says, For this cause we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you and to desire that ye might be filled with the knowledge of His will in all wisdom and spiritual understanding. It says, For this cause we also, since the day we heard it, and it says, For this cause, like Andrew said at the very end, what is the cause? It's because we're going to heaven someday. That's the cause that we should be worshiping Him and being in His Word. It's because He's been so good to us, and we have to repay Him. We never will, like He said, but we still have to press forth, and we have to be willing to do the things that He wants us to do, because God has been so good to me. There's so many people at my school that can't say the same thing as he said. A lot of people can't say the same thing about being raised in a church house and family, but I'm just so glad I have the opportunity that I can witness to them. Right. And we all have these opportunities, as Andrew said. We all have opportunities to witness to other people, and they didn't get raised like I did. They didn't get raised going to church every day, and that's a blessing. I don't know people's hearts, but if you're not bringing your child to church, it's not going to help them through their life. And that's why I'm just so glad that God has blessed me with such a wonderful family and wonderful parents that have wonderful parents. I'm just so glad that no matter what, God makes a way of escape for each and every struggle and trial that I go through. He has a way of escape to bring me through it all. And God's just been so good to me. I can't thank Him enough for all the many things He's done. It seems like I say this every time I come and preach, but that's what He puts on my mind. He put just today. We were talking about, there's a group chat, if you know what that is, that we had on Snapchat. You probably don't know what that is either, but it was where it's like a text message between more than one person, and it was a bunch of my friends that go to my school, and a lot of them, they don't seem like they're saved or nothing, but Macy Smith, she's one of the Christian friends that I have, and there's not many of them at my school, but she's one of them. She brought up, she said that she was high on Jesus, and I said that's a good thing. I mean, a lot of us need to stop being high in this world and stop getting into the things of this world. We need to be high on Jesus. We need to be high on Him, and it's such a blessing that God has gave me friends like that, because a lot of times I seem alone in this world, but a lot of times He reminds me, and He keeps on reminding me. I keep saying a lot of times, but it's every single day that He reminds me that I'm not alone, and He will never leave me nor forsake me, and I'm just so thankful for that. And then it goes on to say in that verse, "Do not cease to pray for you." and to desire that ye might be filled with the knowledge of His will and His wisdom and spiritual understanding. It says that we need to desire to be filled, and we need to want. If we want to grow, we have to want to grow. And a lot of you might not know what I mean by that, but if we want to grow in our spiritual life, then we need to be willing to. We need to be willing to accept what God has for us. We need to be willing to be able to be a preacher. We need to be willing to be these things, because God has blessed me with so many things ever since I accepted His calling. And it was not long after I got saved, He started dealing with me as soon as that happened. And I'm just so glad that I accepted His calling at a young age, because there's so many people at my school that don't even know God, and I'm just so glad that God has been so good to me. I mean, I know I say it a lot, and I'm sorry, but God has been so good to me. And verse 10 says, that you might walk worthy of the Lord unto all pleasing, being fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God. If we are being that kind of Christian, then other people will be able to see that, and they'll be able to grow. There's this person at our church, named Isaiah. He was talking about how a person at his football team stopped cussing for a little bit, and he asked him why, and he said because he was watching him. And you know, a lot of times we don't have to walk up to that person and say, hey, you know, I'd like to know if you're saved or something like that, or things like that. I mean, it doesn't always take going up to that person, but if we're living the life that we need to live, then they can see those things. Sure. They need to see something different in us, because so many people at my school, they proclaim to be Christians, but a lot of times, then as soon as they say that, they go off and start cussing. I mean, and a lot of times, that gets to me, and it gets to us all, I'm sure. There's just so many people in this world. It's getting corrupted, and with sin and just so many things. But through it all, God is right there with me. He's working throughout each and every storm and each and every struggle I go through, no matter how alone I feel. And I'm just so thankful for all that He's done. Verse 11 says, strengthened with all might according to His glorious power unto all patience and long-suffering with joyfulness. A lot of us don't have that joy because we're not patient. We keep on asking God each and every day, which we should, but we shouldn't just be charging Him, getting mad at Him for not giving us these things. We should sit there and we should wait for what He wants to give us, and we shouldn't just sit there and, you know, give me that, Lord. And that's all we do. We shouldn't be like that. We should give me that, Lord, because I want it, and I desperately want it. And then when you do that, you need to go out and do the things that He wants us to do. And because if we don't do the things that He wants us to do, then why should He repay us with those things? And He does, because His mercy endures to us all, not just one person, not just to me. John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him, that whosoever believeth in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life. And that's been my favorite verse ever since I heard it. And it was at a very young age. And I'm just so glad that I'm raised in a great church family that brings me to Sunday school, even because, I mean, that's where I heard that verse and that I memorized it, and it's been a blessing. And, you know, a lot of the little things can be blessings unto us, and we need to look at those things, because a lot of times we just pass through them, like the plant that, you know, that was growing without any planting, and it still makes no sense, but God has been so good, and I don't know what to say because I keep stuttering, but God is, I mean, if we don't unplant ourselves, He cannot grow us to the people that we need to be. And if you will, please turn with me to 2 Peter chapter 1. Verse 5, 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 5. And it says, and beside this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge. And diligence means constant effort to accomplish what is undertaken. If we don't have the constant effort to obtain what He wants, then we ain't going to get it. Because if we, like I said, if we just sit there and we ask Him once and we just sit there and we don't do anything about it, but we're not going to be able to obtain what He wants for from us. And I don't know who wants it tonight, who needs it tonight, but God is dealing with somebody. I don't know who it is, because just the little things, just seeing the plant and that just sitting there growing without being planted, and it's called a plant for a reason. But verse 6 says, and to knowledge temperance, and to temperance patience, and to patience godliness, and to godliness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness charity. And we need to have that patience. Once again, we just need to have that, and we need to have a brotherly kindness. A lot of us, we don't have that brotherly kindness. If you're saved, we should have that brotherly kindness. And if somebody's hurt, we should go help them and be able to lift them up out of that pit that they're in. Because I remember today it was such a blessing that somebody got saved. It's been so long since I've been able to see somebody get saved, and just seeing the joy in their face when they rise up, and just remembering that feeling that I got when I was saved. Out of all places, I was at the movie theaters and I got saved. And I remember that just like it was yesterday, because I'm sure Dad does too, because I was crying because we were watching Left Behind, and I was afraid I was going to be left behind, because God never gave up on me, not once. And at the movie theaters, He dealt with me like I've never been dealt before. And I was crying, and Andrew said, "What's wrong?" And I said, I'm not saved. And then he said, "What?" I said, "I'm not saved." So he said, "Well, go talk to Dad." So I went over there and I said, and he asked, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I'm not saved." And he said, "All right, come on." And then we walked outside. We went to this picnic table. We got a bunch of weird faces because I was crying, and it seemed like I was pretty old at that time, but I was probably really little. But I got to that bench, and Dad kept on asking me, "Are you sure that you're not saved?" And I said, "Yes, I want to get saved." So we went over there to that picnic table, and I got saved that day. And I'm just so glad that out of the little places, out of the movie theaters, God can do great things. God can do great things no matter where we're in this life, no matter what we're in this life. A lot of us here, we're probably not in the places that we need to be, and we're probably not doing the things we need to do. But through it all, God has never gave up on you, and He can bring you through that place if we just let Him bring us through that place. And verse 8 says, "For if these things be in you and abound, they make you, that ye shall neither be barren nor unfruitful in the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ." If you do have these things, if you do have that brotherly love, and you do love your neighbor, if all these things are in you, then you're not going to be unfruitful. You will be fruitful, and other people will come after you. And we were at this place, a person at my church named Don, he invited us to his house, and it was such a blessing. Once again, God opened my eyes to something, and we were sitting there and around the campfire, and they all went inside, and I looked up at the stars, and I thought, that's the way God looks at us, and I'm just so thankful for that, because He sees this world of darkness, He sees that light in us, and just what a wonderful thing that was. And the brightest star was right above me, and I thought, I'm just so thankful that in this dark world He sees me, and He sees each and every one of us that are saved and doing the right things. And if you want to be seen by God, you have to do the things that you need to do, and you have to study in this Word. And a lot of times I'm guilty of that. And verse 9 goes on to say, "But he that lacketh these things is blind, and cannot see afar off, and hath forgotten that he was purged from his old sins." If you are not in these things, you have forgotten what God has done for you. You have forgotten from all the sins that you were in, because a lot of times I'm not doing the things I need to be doing, and then I do the things I need to be doing because I see all those things that He's done for me, and because just so many things that He's done for me, I just can't thank Him enough. I'm sure you guys are tired of me saying that, but I'm just so thankful for all that He's done. He's gave me a great family, and just a great church family, just so many things that He's done for me, and just wonderful things that He's done for me. And I'm sure He's done things for you. If He saved your soul, He's definitely done something for you. Right. And He died on the cross. He paid the ultimate price. Back in the day, they had to find that lamb, and they had to find those things that were perfect and spotless, and they had to go get them and sacrifice them for their sins. But I'm just so glad that God gave His only begotten Son to be the sacrifice for the whole
Right,
world
right.
and to be the very perfect. There was not a single lamb they found that could wash away the sins of the whole world, but
Right.
God gave His only begotten Son, the one that was perfect. Because, He didn't do anything in His life that was bad.
Right.
And then He gave His life for me, the person that has did so many things. And He gave His life for you that probably did so many things. And, just the thought of that, it's just such a blessing that He has been good to me by saving my unworthy soul. He is worthy of it all. And if you
Amen.
don't give Him praise, that's your own fault for not giving Him praise. Because He deserves it, and He's the one
Yes,
that rewards. And if you don't get what God is trying to give to you, that's your own fault. You need to let go of those things. A lot of times we think, how am I going to get this? And a lot of times I think about how am I going to get these blessings, and then God reminds me, just obey me, and I have to obey Him if I want those things. And I have to do the things that He wants me to do. For Matthew chapter 5 verse 6 says, "Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled." If we do want those things, and we do thirst after righteousness, and we do hunger after those things, if we're not going to His dinner table, and if we're not eating the good things, and if we're eating the bad things, we're not going to be blessed.
Right.
We need to start eating the good things. We need to start getting in. I'm very guilty for eating the fleshly bad things because just today I ate a bunch of banana pudding I shouldn't have. It was very good, and I'm lucky that I'm this skinny because I eat a lot. And I'm just so thankful that He's kept me skinny. And just so many things that He's did for me. He's kept me out of the bad things in this world, and He's kept me out of the bad banana puddings of this world. And I'm just so thankful for that He's gave me some broccoli in this world, and He's kept me. God has been so good to me, and I'm just so thankful for all the things that He's kept me out of. And if you will, turn with me to Titus chapter 2. And I know Andrew's disgusted from the broccoli, but a lot of times it's good for you. Give me a second. Well, hold on. Sorry it'll take so long, but devil works his hardest. Well, I guess God don't want me to get it either, but a lot of times, God just gave me something from that. A lot of times, the things that we do think are good because it does taste really good. That banana pudding does taste really, really good, and but that's not the good things because the devil, he gives those good things for you, and they're not very good. They taste good for sure. That banana pudding tasted really good, and I'm thankful for my amazing cook grandma. But I'm just so thankful for that, and the devil, he's put a lot of because the Bible says that there's pleasure in sin for a season, and that those banana puddings will catch up to you in the future. I'm sure it will because I might get pretty big one day, and as long as I keep playing basketball, I might not. But that'll be my excuse. But broccoli, I eat a lot of broccoli, and I don't know why I keep bringing that up, but broccoli is very good for you, Andrew. You may not want to eat it, but it's really good, and it tastes good too. And I'm glad that he put some good tasting vegetables in here, because if he didn't, then I'd be very, very big. And well, I guess I'll look for Titus then. Give me a second. No, it's right after 17. I can't find it, so.
schedule my presentations out, so I wouldn't be preaching so long. Titus chapter 2 and verse 11 says, "For the grace of God that bringeth salvation hath appeared to all men." It doesn't say just me. It doesn't say all the ones that did the good works, but it says all. And the people at our church, they say, what does all mean? And all means, in just about every language, it means all. And, just such a big word that is. And it's only 3 letters, but it means so much. I mean, all covers all. I don't know how many people on this earth, but there's a lot of people on this earth, and it covers each and every one of their sins. Because there's people in jail right now for killing and all these things. And but yet God still has the salvation waiting for them. And I'm just so glad that when I was at my weakest moment, when I was lost and I was in this world looking at things I shouldn't have, doing things I shouldn't have, God still saved my soul, and I'm just so thankful for that. And verse 12 goes on to say, teaching us that denying ungodliness and worldly lust, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world. There is a blessing from not eating that banana pudding. There is a blessing from not eating that sin. There is a blessing from not eating at the wrong table. We should not be letting the devil feed us. We should be letting God feed us, because God is the one that's trying to give us the blessing. The devil's not trying to give you a blessing, I promise you that. And verse 13 goes on to say, looking for that blessed hope and the glorious appearing of the great God and our Savior, Jesus Christ. And each and every day I'm looking for that trumpet sound. I can't wait until the day. Well, I can't wait, but because I'm going to have to, because I might not, because it could be here any minute.
Sure.
It could be here any second. And if you're not ready, then you could have this hope. You could have that joy in your salvation. And for verse 14 says, who gave himself for us that he might redeem us from all iniquity and purify unto himself a peculiar people, zealous of good works. And zealous means passionate of good works and dedicated. If we're not dedicated in doing good works, if we're not passionate in doing good works, we probably won't get very good works, much good works. We should constantly be passionate to give and be passionate to do things for God. And verse 15 says, these things speak and exhort and rebuke with all authority. Let no man despise thee. We should not let any man get us down, because a lot of times the devil will use people to get us down. Because a lot of times people have told me that, I'm not qualified enough and all these things, and I'm not right, and I'm not right with God and all these things. And then the Lord reminds me, and He gives me people that uplift me. And because God, there's always victory in Him. There's never victory in the devil unless we let him have victory over us. And we should never let the devil have victory over us. But I'm just so glad that there is victory in Jesus. There's victory each and every day that I live. There's victory in each and every trial that I live through. Each and every time somebody tells me, that I'm too young to be a preacher, God is always right there beside me, telling me that He doesn't call the qualified, but He qualifies the called. And I'm just so thankful for that, and that He qualifies me each and every day, each and every trial that I go through. He uses those for good. And a lot of times we think, why are we going through these things? But there is a reason for everything. I promise you that. And we may not see it, but there is a reason for everything that we go through. God is always going to be able to lift us through each and everything. We need to just trust in Him. The devil's been discouraging me just so many times, but today He's gave me such a wonderful joy, and just a joy in my salvation. Most of all, there's nothing like that joy for sure, because and just so many joy, and just wonderful friends, just wonderful family, just so many things that He's gave me joy over. And if you ain't got the joy over the things that you should have joy in, then you need to let Him give you joy. Joy that's everlasting, not the joy that's endures for a season, not that sin, but we should let Him give us joy that's everlasting, because God's blessings are everlasting, not the things that in this world that are sinful, and Xbox or something like that. Those things only endure for a season and for a short time. But this Bible, this has been here since forever, and God
isn't going to take it away as long because the word hath I hidden in my heart that I might not sin against God. If we hide this in our heart, then the devil will never be able to take it away from us. And we should always keep this word dear in our heart. And a lot of times I don't keep it dear in my heart, but it is the dearest thing in this world that is fleshly. And God, He is spiritually, and there's nothing like Him. There's nothing in this world like Him. And if you don't have Him, and if you haven't unplanted from your sin, and if you haven't unplanted from your places, because each and every one of us can grow. I can grow, not just because I'm a preacher, not just because all these things, but because I'm a Christian, I can grow.
Right,
and if you're a Christian, then you can grow, and we all can grow, because not one of us in this world are perfect, and there's not one that can't grow. And if you haven't grown tonight, and if you won't grow, you need to get that growth. And that's all I have.
We heard a couple of wonderful messages from both these young men. Press on and to not be even if we are unplanted, leave the sin behind, press forward. God is so good to us. So very good to us. And as Ryan was speaking, you know, he got saved by watching a movie Left Behind. What if he comes back tonight? Are we ready to go? Is everything right in our hearts, in our lives? He can come back at any time. It behooves us to be ready to go when He calls.
Yeah.
Because if you're not ready, you'll be left here in this old world.
Right.
And this ain't a real great place. But I'm thankful for both of your messages and laid out what God give you. We'll go ahead and do a song of invitation in case anybody wants to pray.
Page 40.